This is Hoot, Chapter 20, Part 2. Little Rubber Pieces. Exhausted, Chuck Muckle leaned over and squinted at the mutilated toy snakes. His expression reflected both disbelief and humiliation. "What in the world?" he wheezed. During the violent attack on the cottonmouths, the crowd had oohed and awed. Now the only sounds to be heard were the click, click, click of the news photographer's camera and the panting of the Mother Paula's vice president. "Hey, them snakes are fake," Curly piped. "They ain't even real." Roy leaned toward Beatrice and whispered, "Another Einstein." Chuck Muckle pivoted in slow motion. Ominously, he pointed the blade of the shovel at the boy in the owl burrow. "You!" he bellowed, stalking forward. Roy jumped in front of him. "Out of my way, kid," Chuck Muckle said. "I don't have time for any more of your nonsense. Move it now." It was clear that the Mother Paula's big shot had totally lost his cool and possibly his marbles. "What are you doing?" Roy asked, knowing he probably wouldn't get a calm, patient answer. "I said get out of my way. I'm going to dig that little twerp out of the ground myself." Beatrice darted forward and stood next to Roy, taking his right hand. An anxious murmur swept through the crowd. "Aw, that's real cute, just like Romeo and Juliet," Chuck Muckle taunted. He dropped his voice and said, "Game over, kiddies. On the count of 3, I'm going to start using this shovel. Or better yet, how about I get Baldy over there to crank up the bulldozer?" The foreman scowled. "Thought you said I was fired." Out of nowhere, someone grabbed Roy's left hand. It was Garrett, his skateboard tucked under one arm. 3 of his skateboarding homies were lined up beside him. "What are you guys doing?" Roy said. "Skipping school," Garrett replied merrily. "But dude, this looks like way more fun." Roy turned to see that Beatrice had been joined by the entire soccer team, linking arms in a silent chain. They were tall, strong girls who weren't the least bit intimidated by Chuck Muckle's blustery threats. Chuck Muckle realized it too. "Stop this foolishness right now," he begged. "There's no need for an ugly mob scene." Roy watched in wonderment as more and more kids slipped out of the crowd and began joining hands, forming a human barricade around Beatrice's self-buried stepbrother. None of the parents made a move to stop them. The TV cameraman announced that the demonstration was being broadcast live on the new news, while the photographer from the paper swooped in for a close-up of Mr. Muckle looking drained, defeated, and suddenly very old. He braced himself on the ceremonial shovel as if it were a cane. "Didn't any of you people hear me?" he rasped. "This event is over. Done. You can all go home now." The mayor, Councilman Grandy, and the man from the Chamber of Commerce stealthily retreated to their limousine, while Leroy Brannett plodded off to his trailer in search of a cold beer. Officer Delinko leaned against the fence, writing up a report. Roy was in an eerie yet tranquil daze. Some girl started singing a famous old folk song called "This Land Is Your Land." It was Beatrice, of all people, and her voice was surprisingly lovely and soft. Before long, the other kids were singing along too. Roy shut his eyes and felt like he was floating on the sunny slope of a cloud. "Excuse me, hotshot, got room for one more?" Roy blinked open his eyes and broke into a grin. "Yes, ma'am," he said. Mother Paula stepped between him and Garrett to join the circle. Her voice was gravelly, but she could carry a tune just fine. The demonstration went on for another hour. 2 other TV crews showed up, along with a couple of extra Coconut Cove police cruisers summoned by Officer Delinko. Chuck Muckle exhorted the newly arrived lawmen to arrest the protesters for trespassing, truancy, and disturbing the peace. The suggestion was firmly rejected, a sergeant informing Mr. Muckle that handcuffing a bunch of middle school kids wouldn't be good for the public safety department image. The situation remained fairly stable until the flamboyant arrival of Lana Leap, who had spotted her son on the TV news. She was all dressed up like she'd been invited to a party, and she wasn't the least bit shy about sticking her nose in front of the cameras. Roy overheard her tell a reporter how proud she was of her boy, risking his freedom to save the poor, helpless owls. "He's my brave little champion," Lana crowed obnoxiously. With a phony squeal of affection, she charged toward the wall of humanity that encircled her son. Beatrice ordered everyone to lock arms, blocking Lana's path. There was one hairy moment. Lana and her stepdaughter stood glowering at each other, eye to eye, as if they were about to tangle. Garrett broke the standoff with a phenomenal fake fart that sent Lana reeling backward in horror. Roy nudged Beatrice. Look up there. Overhead, a small, dusky-colored bird was flying in marvelous, daring corkscrews. Roy and Beatrice watched in delight as it banked lower and lower, finishing with a radical dive toward the burrow at the center of the circle. Everybody whirled to see where the bird had landed. All of a sudden, the singing stopped. There was Mulletfingers, trying not to giggle, the daredevil owl perched calmly on the crown of his head. Don't worry, little guy, the boy said. You're safe for now.